This week, the biggest grand design ever. Now, we are talking hundreds of tons of concrete, tens of thousands of blocks, and a sitting room big enough to put 4 cars in. Now, the question is how you get all of that on a slope as steep as this. This is Belfast, one of the great cities of the Industrial Revolution. However, most of its 18th century past has been wiped out by modern development. Buildings like this tiny lockkeeper's cottage are a rare find. This house is one of the oldest in the city and is home to Thomas and Dervla O'Hare. They've lived here for nearly 6 years. And although they still love the place for its compactness, they're about to build something much, much bigger. Thomas, who's an architect, spotted an opportunity when they bought this detached house 2 years ago.
We saw this house for sale and didn't like it at all, but what we did like was the fact that it had a large portion of land behind it on a steeply sloping site. That's where we're going to build our dream house, the Hill House.
The enormous garden behind this big, ugly house is the plot where Thomas and Dervla have already started to build their vision. My sainted aunt, look at that!
This is it.
That's what it looks like at the moment.
It's a huge cliff of mud.
Basically, you got a crater which we are then building the house into the hillside.
That is an enormous piece of excavation. I mean, look at this mountain of mud here.
That's right, and there's been 10 times that already removed off
Really?
the site. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
This would be the start of the house. This is
The garage area we're coming into.
So what are you going to build here?
It's a hill house. It's terraced into the hillside over the slope of the hill.
Wow.
Yeah.
It's built both into but also up the hillside,
Up the
as well.
hillside, yes.
That's right.
It's going to look like one of the sort of like the hill houses in Hollywood, you know, sort of terraced up. There's going to be quite a nice courtyard in the middle of it, and there's going to be quite a lot of glass around the courtyard.
As you approach the house, all you're going to see is banks and trees, and then
You can't
front
actually see the
elevation.
other
Wow.
houses either.
And
you know,
then
'cause
once
it's
you
the
Well, that is
mountains.
quite Hollywood. That is quite
Yeah,
glamorous, isn't it? You know, to kind of snake through the woods.
Yeah,
to
I
find
look
the
so
house.
glamorous today, don't I?
Yeah, you're doing better than me, I can tell you, in my waterproof trousers. As you wind up the hill towards Thomas and Dervla's modernist home, there'll be little clue as to what awaits. They're building a 21st century answer to the Roman villa, with a copper roof, glass and concrete walls, and vast amounts of living space, all arranged around a central courtyard. In order to cope with the incredibly steep slope, the house will be divided across 3 levels. At the base of the building, there'll be a garage and all the utilities. Through the front door, you'll find a double-width processional staircase leading up to the living and dining areas. Full-height glass walls will blur the boundary between the sitting room and the central courtyard. Almost the entire building is arranged around it, including the enormous kitchen. At the rear of the site, where the slope is steepest, there'll be a bedroom block, part built into the hill and sheathed with 2 stories of south-facing glass to capture light. With 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms, this could be a super compact modern hotel. Think of it instead as Thomas and Dervla's glamorous private hideaway, a modernist mansion. This site is not an easy site to get to build on.
No.
Because
Certainly it's not.
you've got the building right up, by the looks of it, against the perimeters of the site.
Yes.
No access from the sides, or certainly not from above,
No,
and one steep track up.
that's right. It makes it very difficult to build. It's difficult to get access to. Normally sites are level and you can deliver your materials and you can carry them by hand to wherever the location is you want to put them, or deliver them where you want them.
This
But
one's,
here
under
not.
this one's under the shadow of a landslide.
That's it. That's exactly it.
Thomas seems pretty relaxed about the difficulties of this site, but he's already had to construct these enormous retaining walls that reach 2 meters back into the hillside. They're the domestic equivalent of the Hoover Dam. This is the
This
bedrooms
is
here?
the 3 bedrooms at the back.
And this is wet concrete we're standing on?
Yes, there.
I've left my mark there. In the UK, we just don't like the challenges of building on hillsides. But Thomas and Dervla are undaunted. They've travelled and they know what's possible.
I've been in sort of similar styles of buildings in LA and Hollywood and places like that, and also in Thailand. You know, there's a few buildings that were built back into hills and stuff like that. So I've always liked that style of building and architecture, and it's going to be unusual.
The only way Thomas can make his vast, glamorous design affordable is by not employing a main contractor. Instead, they've formed a design and build team. Thomas as architect, Dervla as project manager. Have you done this before?
No, I have not. I don't know anything about building. I came from a sales background. I have no experience whatsoever besides having a husband as an architect, but I'm up for the challenge.
But as a first-time project for a project manager, it's not an easy thing to cut your teeth on, this build, is it? I mean, very difficult site, really difficult access.
It is a lot of hard work, yes, but it's exciting because it's your own. You know, you're going to get a final and finished product at the end, and it is your own building. It's your own home, and for anybody to build their own home and have the much input that I will have into my home, and Thomas will have doing the architecture bit, you know, it's very exciting.
Thomas and Dervla's budget is £350,000. Their plan is to finance the build by selling the house at the front. But they won't put it on the market until it's been transformed to complement the new building. In the meantime, they've taken out a bank loan to fund the first half of the build and get work started. Eight weeks in, and earth is still being excavated. So far, a staggering 200 lorry loads of soil have been removed from site, and many more will follow. It's the price of building on a hill. These are the kind of epic groundworks you'd usually find on civil engineering projects. But Thomas just takes them in his stride.
Take on any job. I don't really mind how big it is. In fact, I don't really see any challenge that you can't overcome it or do it. It's the way I kind of think about things. Like I just think about, yes, it'll certainly be difficult, but you'll give it a go. And there's always, if it can be done, it'll be done. And there's nothing really that anybody can't do if they put their mind to it and really try, you know. That's the way I see it. Maybe that's very naive, but it's certainly the way I feel about things.
Thomas is used to large-scale projects. Among other things, he's designed big commercial buildings. For the duration of this build, he's moved his practice into the front house, from where he'll juggle this project with work. His commercial experience has given him bags of confidence, but it has to be said that the size of this place has already scared the wits out of his builders. Although Dervla and Thomas have put their back-retaining wall up, they still have, amazingly, 12,000 blocks yet to lay on this site. Now, the contractor they had, who built this wall, left. He'd had enough. The second contractor was so daunted by all the mud here that he didn't bother turning up. And the third contractor, that bloke standing over there, who's turned up for the first time to have a look at the site, well, from here, it looks to me as though he's yet to be convinced. To the average builder, building a house on a precipitous slope is a challenge. Building it in winter is misery incarnate. Which is why, 8 weeks into their build, Thomas and Dervla have already got through 2 block-laying contractors and are desperate to get a third signed up. So what's the deal? Have you got a blockie?
Well, we have to agree a price. The price is per day. So he's going to have 4 block layers on plus 2 labourers, so it's a better deal.
Looks like it go.
Looks like it's a goer, yeah.
I'd say so, yeah.
What was his view of the site?
Well, what he thought was that it was a very large house.
He was doing a lot of frowning when I looked across.
That's because you wouldn't agree a price.
And would you blame him? Miraculously, however, he agrees, and before long there aren't just retaining walls, but rooms emerging from the mud. In places, the block is laying the blocks on their sides to strengthen the walls. Thomas is clearly at home using hardcore commercial techniques, and he plans to run this site no different from any other.
We intend to build the hill house as quickly as is physically possible, and to do that we've implemented ideas of fast tracking from the commercial world and to bring one trade in right on top of the next one. The reason we've got such a tight programme is to minimise our costs in terms of site overheads and finance.
So everything has to be really organised correctly from word go.
So unless we do run it like clockwork and keep everybody in tight, the end date will be difficult to control. That's why we must work to the day, to the minute, and keep the pressure on and see how it goes.
See this, look. This precision piece of Swiss engineering works because of all the spindles and cogs and wheels inside, all working in perfect synchronicity. Unlike the average build, which has the split-second timing of a sundial. And that's because all the cogs and the spindles on a build sweat and swear and turn up late for work with a hangover because they're human. So it doesn't really matter in the end how magical Dervler's powers of persuasion are. This thing is not going to run like clockwork. And yet, Thomas has planned the build schedule almost to the second. To keep on track, he set the block layers a target to lay a staggering 800 blocks a day. What I find miraculous, though, is that because this is the relentless way Thomas works as an architect, he gets a result. In just 2 weeks, they've laid 10,000 blocks. The lower bedrooms and the first floor are almost complete.
Since this team's come on, it's been fabulous. Everybody says it's supposed to be very stressful, but at the moment I find it quite easy because we've only one team on site, we've only the block layers on site. It has actually been not that hard. Even the weather's been brilliant. You know, sometimes the weather can affect, you know, the whole build, but it hasn't affected us at all.
But inevitably, it isn't long before the volatile Belfast weather slows work right down. Just 2 days from now, they're expecting delivery of the giant concrete slabs that'll make up the floors and ceilings of this building. But the site is nowhere near ready. The following day, things only get worse.
Snowing this morning just makes it extremely difficult to get everything ready for tomorrow because there's so much, hand labour has to be done. The guys who turned up this morning are all away to take shelter because of the snow.
We're going to have to get the block layers back.
Yeah.
Why do they not want to work in the snow when everybody else has to?
I think they'll get wet. But it's actually not that wet, you know what I mean? It's not really soaking in. It's quite dry.
It's not even that cold, really.
Thomas and Dervler won't allow anything to get in the way of their schedule or in the way of getting their builders to site.
We want you to build the wall. We really need those cleared out.
With some fast talking, Dervler's able to persuade the block layers to come back to work.
Oh dear. Don't look too friendly there this morning.
The snow, in fact, melts by lunchtime, leaving the slope treacherous. The whole site is wet and muddy, and the only way to get it ready for the crane is to work through the night. The big precast concrete floor slabs are going to go up here behind me on that next level, and they weigh 60 tons. Now, today is the day when they come, and the crane, when it arrives, is going to sit on this pre-prepared piece of ground up here. However, before it gets here, it's got to negotiate that steep, slippery slope. This is Dervler and Thomas's very own 4x4 track. This is just the mortar lorry. This is just the lorry with the mortar that's going to glue all the concrete together. He hasn't got a very heavy load, and even he can't get up here. Bloody hell. Oh, yes! The only way to get up the slope is to take a fast run at it before the 20-ton load sinks into the mud. Thomas has instructed this army of fitters to lift all of these precast slabs in just one day. Before they do, they need to cushion the whole place with a raft of giant airbags in case anyone falls from the upper levels during installation.
Now these are really, really cool beams because not only are they pre-stressed and pre-formed, but they're also pre-insulated. Look, there's this great thick wedge of polystyrene which is formed into the beam in manufacture, which means you don't have to then bother about insulating your floor afterwards. It's really cool. It's also apparently the first time it's ever been used in Britain.
The slabs for the sitting room and the dining room are being installed on the first level to begin with. They're simply like giant self-supporting concrete floorboards, each weighing just over 1.5 tons. Concrete's polluting to manufacture, and Thomas could have built his floors, say, in timber. But this method stiffens the structure and is incredibly fast.
It's a wacky system. This is what they use for building motorway bridges and concrete car parks. And having just dropped these beams in and grout the gaps with cement slurry, it means the whole of this floor can effectively be constructed in what? 45 minutes.
By midday, the first floor is finished. So far, Thomas and Dervler are managing to stick to their to-the-second schedule.
Hard floor.
It's getting it. It's amazing. Look, 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 look. Yeah.
It's a hard floor.
Where there was fresh air, where there was void, there is now floor.
Yeah.
How's that? If you ever decide not to live here, you could always convert it to a public car park, couldn't you? Municipal car park. It's an enormous space.
An hour later, and a 40-ton crane arrives to lift the second batch of slabs onto the upper level of the building. But as yet, there's no sign of the slabs themselves.
So, where are the beams?
Well, we're still waiting on them, Kevin. It's now, what, 20 to 4. They must be offloaded and fitted tonight.
You won't get it done tonight.
I have hired a crane for tomorrow, and I've hired another 3 lorries to come tomorrow to deliver materials. And if I put those guys off, I'll lose a week on that. I've then got 6 men employed to come and build this, and they'll have nothing to do, so I've got to pay the 6 guys' wages, no matter what. So it is important that it gets off this site
quite crucial, then, isn't it?
The beams eventually arrive 2 hours late, but there's only an hour of daylight left to lift them onto the building. This job has to be done today, otherwise Thomas's schedule and budget get blown. But this is a much more painstaking process. There are steels involved. The crane has to reach further and much higher to get to the rear bedroom wing, and the light is fading fast. While the fitters race to meet their deadline, Thomas and Dervler can't resist a look at the view this hill house will give them.
Our bedroom is from that wall where that man's standing, right across that far corner right there.
It's gorgeous, isn't it? Look at that lovely
You
sun.
have been there. It's good, isn't it? It's done a great job, isn't it?
Thomas has, so far, used tons of concrete in this vast building. He loves the stuff so much, he's even designed the enormous staircase as one pre-cast structure. It weighs 6 tons, and it requires something of a struggle to get it into position. Despite the race against the dying light, it takes the entire workforce to fit it. The job is so delicate that work on the roof has to be abandoned. Thomas's schedule is in crisis.
This morning where we are is probably about 2 hours behind where we should be. Because they have overran, then we are simply going to have to work around them.
Because we can't stop the programme. We have to keep it going.
We're not going to let the programme slip any further.
Thomas and Dervler are running this build on a knife edge with a tolerance of 2 hours, almost to prove to themselves that they can. But of course, money is the real driver.
We've got an end date, which is obviously critical to us, and cost. Every time you lose an hour, a day, it's all just money. Because we are the contractor, it falls back to ourselves to pull it all back into place. So if something slips, we've just got to dovetail it in somewhere else so we still hit the same date.
The only way that Thomas and Dervler are able to pull this off is through constant shared communication, shared workload, and the sharing of a common belief and vision. They're a formidable team.
So how easy is it working with them, Dervler, with your missus?
It's actually surprisingly easy. When I say surprisingly, I do mean surprisingly easy, because obviously you're working with your wife on that is it's a recipe for disaster, really. But to date, we haven't had any problems.
Good morning. Can I speak to Billy in the Heart Centre, please?
Which is good, really, because on this build there isn't a second spare for problems. What helped clearly is that they're an inspiration for each other.
How important is having Thomas in your life? Because he's the professional architect.
Well, I think it would be impossible to do if we weren't both in the office at the same time.
You've got no room for movement, have you? You're trying to back up the trades, one against the other. It's down to you, personally, to kind of deal with all of that,
Yeah.
isn't it? Yeah. Tell them what for.
It can be very stressful now and again, but the way I see it is that you have to actually just get on with it. Because if you don't, and you sort of stand back and say, God, I'm really stressed out today, I need this done, I need that done, nothing would happen.
Supposing you'd had a project manager you'd employed, just on a salary for 6
Why employ
months.
a project manager when I can do the job?
Thomas is clearly guiding Dervler through the pains of scheduling and sequencing this build. She's a natural. A gift for persuasion and her clear thinking bring an almost ruthless efficiency to this project. After 4 months, they're still on schedule. But as the very final bits of blockwork are being completed, Thomas succumbs to the temptation to start making changes.
At one stage, I was a little bit concerned about the reception area was getting too big, and I thought it might just seem a little bit too large and echoey. And then whenever we built the fireplace in it,
You thought it was
believe
too
it or not,
small?
it did take the size
Thought
of
it
the
was too
space down.
small.
And yeah, I thought maybe it's just not big
So
enough
you
now again.
you moved the wall to make it bigger.
So I moved the glass out, about 900 millimetres, or a metre actually, to make it bigger.
A bespoke building's design will, of course, evolve on site. And Thomas, of course, is more personally attached to this project than a commercial one. But on such a fast-track build, it's very risky to start tinkering.
It's all part of the great design process.
Given that so much effort has gone into keeping this build on time, it's not surprising that something's had to give.
Right.
Thomas and Dervler were hoping to fund the second half of the build by selling the house at the front of the plot. However, work on modernising this ugly box has barely started.
So what is the deal with this? Because I thought this was supposed to be finished by now and
sold,
sold. Exactly. So why not?
Well, that was the original plan. That hasn't worked out.
But I thought there was a big kind of financial relationship between this house and the main house.
There is a financial relationship between the two, and we do have to sell this in order to complete the funding on the main house. The thing is that the main costs only kick in at the very end. So whenever those costs land on our table, that's the point at which we must get ourselves in a position where we're ready to clear this house.
Yeah, once they start on it with the extension and the plasters, it'll not take that long to get it done. So
The sooner it's sold, the better. The sooner it's finished, the better.
It's all very well, the main build running to schedule, but unless they can sell this house very soon, that obsession with Swiss watch accuracy will all have been in vain. It's now the end of April, just 5 months since work started on Thomas and Dervler's Hill House on the outskirts of Belfast. The main structure of this enormous building has now swallowed over 29,000 concrete blocks. They've been laid all through the winter by a team of just 6 men, who are now approaching the end of their job.
I think everybody will be really glad to see the last block going on.
Yeah.
The block layers want to be finished, we want them finished. Everybody just wants to get cleared up and move on to the next stage.
But as you'd expect from Dervler and Thomas, they've organised the next trade to be on site the very next day. the roofers are primed to get straight to work. Although the steep slope is still causing headaches.
You need to sort of come over this way a bit, because that wee bit that you're going into, you're sliding into that muck, but you're going great at it.
Yeah, access is still a problem. The people who brought the scaffolding, they couldn't get up the side at all, and scaffolding sitting at the bottom of the road. There was guys who are programmed to come in and build scaffolding. So if they have to carry it, you're going to have to pay them to carry it. See what's going to add onto your budget. You can't afford to do that.
Even when they can get stuff delivered up the hill, Thomas and Dervler have the headache of then getting it up into the building. These 250 timber joists need to be individually moved to the top of the site by hand. A slow and expensive process.
The guys are carrying the stuff up and everybody's, okay at the minute, but I'm sure as the day progresses, if it isn't lifted closer, people will get a bit naturally upset. We've budgeted the job so we can finish it within the set amount of money, and if it runs out at the end, we can't afford to be in that position, so we have to make sure there is no mistakes and we can't have time being lost.
Dervler, as always, stays one step ahead, cajoling suppliers and pulling in favours from friends who know someone with a digger or forklift. The problems are not just about access or the inefficiency of man-handling all the materials. There's the question of where to put everything.
It's what little space we have is being very quickly eroded. Whoa, 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 whoa! Me, what? Okay, yeah. You see that all right, can you? It's a logistical nightmare. I think it's the official term for it.
Having struggled to get all the materials onto the upper levels, the joiners can finally start work.
Now they started the roof, I can't tell you, I'm so excited to see some wood in the building instead of all that grey concrete. But we won't see much more of it because apparently the cost of all the timber and the plywood to make the roof is the same as it cost to put up all the walls in this place, all 29,000 blocks. Ultimately, the single most important reason why Thomas chose to build his house out of blockwork and not timber is because it's much cheaper.
But the roof is not all timber. Thomas has designed the roof structure to be reinforced with a steel skeleton. The open spaces of this place are going to be vast, and the roof has to oversail great walls of glass. So steel is the obvious solution. And Thomas being Thomas, he specified 16 beams, the first of which is supersize.
That's our first beams just in. It's 12.2 metres long, which is the longest stock piece of steel that the fabricators could get. All it is a lintel for the top of our window. But it's really great that it gives us a picture now of where the ceiling ends and where the outside starts.
It's only when all of the steels are in that the freestanding walls are joined up. For the first time, it's clear just how large Thomas and Dervler's living space will be. Once the roof is joisted out a few weeks later, the building still looks cavernous. It hasn't yet lost any of the qualities of a multi-storey car park.
Good Lord. Hiya.
How are you?
Well, I'm well, how are you?
How are you doing?
You're very well, how are you?
Fine.
You are progressing well.
It's moved on a bit, so it has since we're last
telling
here,
me.
But,
It is vast though, isn't it? It's the size of 2 semi-detached houses, this. You could put 3 families in there. Look.
good to have a bit of space, to rattle around in. Definitely big enough, Kevin, I think that's for sure.
That's quite good that you've actually admitted it's big, because you keep adjusting walls to make it look bigger.
I thought a golden rule for most architects was once you get on site, you don't change the design. You resolve all that before you get on site.
I've realised that because it is your own house, you actually can make the changes and get away with it.
But all that has an implication on schedule and on money, on all these
really.
issues.
It
does. That's the only reason
wall.
we've done the changes. They actually haven't had implications, and the only reason they haven't had implications is because we've been here to make the change as it's happened. So it actually hasn't had a knock-on effect.
Right. So, any changes in
As well as the main sitting room, there's a vast kitchen and a second dining room, both of which are surrounded by floor-to-ceiling glass that looks out onto the courtyard.
It's all glass, isn't it?
Yeah.
As is this and that. I mean, there's a lot of glazing in this building.
It certainly is. I must say, I'm really, really looking forward now to living in it. Before, you know, you're interested in it, but now just can't wait till it's finished, you know, and can't wait to get into it.
The punishing schedule that Thomas and Dervler have set themselves means that progress here is fast and furious.
What else do you need done besides those mesh grills on the...
The trouble with this fast-track method is that, apart from materials piling up, with several trades on site, the place is becoming organised chaos.
The problem is with our site, there's not one trade that works by themselves. There's so many trades. There's like the joiners, there's the plasterers, there's guys doing the roof, the electrician will be there as well. So there's so many trades that are working together in that build.
Definitely it's more hectic and it's more difficult to organise that. And it's more difficult to convince people that they must work alongside other people who they normally wouldn't work alongside.
But when it comes to the ordering and getting guys on site and why aren't you here and what are you doing, I just simply lift the phone and call Dervler.
We'll talk about that. Where's your wee pen there? All right, we'll talk about that one. At the project at the moment, we're probably a small bit behind, do you not think?
Yeah, we're probably running about, what, 2 weeks, something like that, behind where we'd like to be.
In truth, work is even more behind. The smooth planned management of trades, swapping them between the new house and the older house down the hill, just hasn't happened. By now, they should have finished the old place and sold it.
If anything slipped, this has, hasn't it? It's still not finished. And it really ought to be round about now, isn't it? Because you've got to get this on the market to sell it, to help pay for that.
Yeah, we need to get it on for the end of this month.
But what about the cash flow? I mean, how easy is it to pay the bills at the end of the month?
Well, at the moment it's actually okay, but the big bills which are due, for instance, for the glass and for the kitchen, are coming up.
What are you going to do if you can't sell this? You've got to be able to get this on the market.
Yeah, well, we need to get this onto the market because we obviously would like to get a buyer in place. Otherwise, in a situation like that, then you'd have to extend your finance,
With the bank,
which is not something that we want to do. So it's another deadline we'll have to work to on top of the first one.
It's another little layer, isn't it, of difficulty and challenge in this big layer cake that is this project. It's just
That's exactly
another
it.
thing to keep you awake at night.
Something else to worry about, yes, that's it.
Despite not having the money in place, Thomas and Dervler press on with the copper roof. To speed the process, the fitters have craned their rolling mill onto the roof, allowing them to form bespoke lengths of profiled copper straight from the roll. It's a system that's little changed from medieval leadwork. But Thomas chose copper because it's lightweight, it's quick, the preeminent requirement on this build, and it's marked out by beautiful detailing.
So are you still on your up-to-the-minute schedule? Is it still to the minute?
Not really. We're probably running at about 2 weeks behind.
Shame on you.
And we have pulled it up now to be 1 week.
That sounds right, Dervler. That sounds good.
Isn't it?
Yeah. So I've noticed every time I come here, this place gets bigger and bigger. The whole building is growing.
It's just getting better and better.
But you're gonna, I mean, look, how many site guys have you got here today? You've got electricians, you've got plumbers, you've got carpenters, you've got roofers, you've got plasterers. How many guys? 10?
I think there's 21 people or something on the site.
That's my point, you see. I mean, this building can swallow 20 people. You don't even know
You
they're
can't
here.
see them.
You guys aren't going to know each other. You're going to be wandering around the house, shouting, Dervler!
It has occurred to us.
Too big?
No, I just love the size of it. I just love the open spaces, the open plan living.
Yes, it's very big, but there's not lots and lots of rooms. It's just big rooms.
Yes. You're going to love it, I know. You're going to be able to play bowls and cycle around this house, and scooter, and just have great
That's
fun.
a good idea, yeah.
Be kids again.
The penalty for building such a large open plan space is its environmental impact. The energy requirements to build this place have been huge already, and it's going to cost a bomb to heat. But Thomas's belief in this big space, glass-walled modernism is unshakable. Already, there are some tantalizing glimpses of exciting shapes and details. But the rooms of this house won't make sense until the glass goes in, and it arrives bang on schedule at the beginning of August. There are 30 double-glazed units throughout the building, and to help get them on site, Thomas has asked that they be delivered in small batches. The glass people were supposed to arrive in a little van today, just to take the glass up the hill, park and be able to offload the glass up at the top of the hill. As it is, they've turned up, despite everybody agreeing that they wouldn't, in a 40-foot Arctic trailer. Oh my God. Hello. These pieces of glass are very heavy, very expensive, and very delicate.
No, it's glass. Yeah, to be lifted out of the back of a lorry.
Desperate to avoid any delay and have the entire batch sent back to the manufacturer, Dervla once again calls in another favour.
Is Charlie coming to the rescue, Derva?
Be down here in 20 minutes.
Coordinating a 40-ton truck, unwieldy pieces of glass and a slightly shaky forklift normally used to shift hay bales isn't a job for the faint-hearted, especially as each glazing unit costs around £1,000. There isn't a glass manufacturer in the world that could produce a double-glazed unit big enough for the sitting room window. But Thomas has got the biggest units he can. This glazing would usually appear on the high street in shop fronts. It's another example of Thomas's focused ingenuity and his borrowing of ideas from the commercial sector. Well, now, look at that. That's gone in really quickly, that wall, hasn't it? It's quite a clever system you've got, because for this fixed glazing, you've just designed these hidden channels so the thing just slots in, slides along, slots in, slides along.
Hope all the rest of the glass goes in as fast as that now. The way I see it is the house has to be completely finished by a date, and I really would love to see the whole finished product. It's just like the next stage is the screening next week, the next stage, until it's all completely finished.
I think...
You're not going to rest, are you, woman, eh? You're not going to rest till it's all done. Are you?
Not really, no.
You won't allow yourself to?
No, I just want it finished at this stage. I really want it finished.
Thomas and Dervla are still convinced they'll complete this build no later than the original deadline, which is October the 4th, just 6 weeks from now. To make sure they do, there are now 40 to 50 people on site, all working like crazy towards getting this place finished.
Keith, we're ready for Thursday for the glass.
By the end of August, the constant frantic activity is beginning to yield results.
It's really coming together, which is quite nice. I really didn't think I would get to this stage. It's just like, wow.
This is the busiest phase of the build so far. Quite bizarre then that just 2 weeks in advance of their deadline, Thomas and Dervla apparently start a new project to remove another 1,000 tons of earth.
An opportunity arose very recently that we were able to purchase a bit of our neighbour's garden. We looked at it and we thought it'd be a great opportunity to get a bit of extra garden space. The front wall, as you approach the house, we were going to put on an expensive panel finish onto it, and we're doing the panels in a different fashion now, so we can do them out of render and get a nice bit of landscape instead.
We had to sacrifice something because it was just, we couldn't really afford it because it was way over the budget, really. The only problem now is that Thomas actually wants to knock through a doorway from the kitchen into the garden, which probably won't happen.
Never say never.
No, no way.
Thanks to Thomas and Dervla's steely ambition, this build just keeps growing. So will they ever finish it? Thomas and Dervla's deadline is almost upon them. They still hope to complete their hill house no later than the 4th of October.
We are still on schedule. We have about 1 week to go. It is extremely tight, but we should make it.
Even when work on site is at fever pitch, Thomas is thinking of the next big idea, one of which is the largest piece of granite he could find. a water feature for the courtyard. It's another little testament to his belief that anything is possible.
This huge house, this epic building was always going to be a nightmare to build, always going to be difficult, always challenging on this slope. 9 months ago when they started, I said to Dervla and Thomas, there is no way you will meet your deadline. And I was wrong. Today is the day they were supposed to move in. And this morning at 5 o'clock, the last piece of glass arrived. They're a dream team. Hey, how are you?
How are you?
How's your house?
Yeah, come on ahead, it's grand.
Go ahead.
After you.
Good grief.
It's fabulous, isn't it?
It is, Deborah, it is fabulous. It's like being suddenly in a TV commercial. It's very glamorous. Is it a shock to see it all suddenly painted, decorated and finished?
It is in the fact that I can't actually believe we've actually got here, you know, but it's been a lot of hard work from everybody's perspective, you know.
Have you had much kip recently?
Not a lot, no, it's been pretty much flat out.
Solid.
That's it.
Yeah, you both seem pretty cool, pretty relaxed.
No, but if you had a house like this, you'd be cool as well.
I think I might, yes.
Thomas's obsessions with this place were that it should be bright, white, and seem as spacious as possible. What delivers those obsessions is the glass, which disappears into the ceilings, walls and floors, captures light and connects the outdoors and indoors.
This is the room that you had all those issues about size with, you know, worrying about it being too small, too large, too small again, moving walls. And now, is it too big, is it too small?
I think it's just right.
Oh, it's just right, of course. The architect would say that, wouldn't he?
Yeah, he would.
Do you know what I like about this, though, is the fact that as you look out from here, even from this level, you've got tremendous privacy here.
There is good privacy with the screening and the planting.
Yeah. And the other thing about this space that I like is that you've got this fireplace here in the middle. These partitions and these sort of half walls create spaces. So you manage out of this very open plan building to kind of nevertheless hive off these little private spaces.
That's right, just little boxes and little spaces between walls, stairs, all the elements of the building, dividing it up.
The other great mathematical trick is the conjuring of these soaring verticals, counterpointed with sleek horizontal lines, where once there was a 45-degree hillside. Most of the accommodation is at the same level. You would hardly know you were living on a hill.
Oh, wow. You know, I don't normally admit to coveting other people's kitchens, but
Do you like it?
I do like this.
You're not getting it.
What is this, some kind of plastic laminate composite material? What is this weird?
It's Bianco Carrara.
It's marble?
Yeah.
The whole thing?
Yeah.
It's
All the
vast.
way down, yeah.
Good Lord. And it's accompanied by, of course, another sitting room,
Yeah.
as every function in the house is, and another dining room here.
That's it. It is quite spacious, but it hasn't got lots and lots and lots of rooms. It's just, they are big rooms. Very big rooms.
Thank you. Yes. Do you know, when I saw this last, it was one huge, unholy mess. Look at it now.
It's absolutely beautiful, isn't it?
It is. It's a delight. It's a little Eden. And when we first met, this was going to be your only outdoor space, wasn't it? But I've noticed that you've acquired a garden. I mean, another large garden. How do you access that garden?
Well, the access to the garden is, the minute it's from the back of the house, but we will be making a doorway through
No, we
from the
won't.
kitchen.
Come on, what is it? You
No, we
won't or you will?
won't.
You will.
I think we will. Definitely wouldn't allow me to cut the wall out so close to the end of the project, but I can see one Saturday morning it'll be out with a saw.
The generosity of this place doesn't just come from the building's size. It's also down to the engineering and design. The way the building sits into the hill, Thomas's roof, which cantilevers out as if defying gravity. and his glass walls which appear to float unsupported. This house has all the scale and largesse of a Roman country villa.
These doors are built for giants. God, these rooms are built for giants. Look at them. Look at this.
It's big, isn't it?
I know. It was 10 foot, 3 metre plus ceiling.
3.2 or something high, something stupid.
With this wall of glass.
It's like a picture frame whenever we look out toward the view to the front.
It's fabulous if you're lying down on the bed, all you can see is the green trees and the sky. Yeah, have a go.
I mean, from here, you've got the big copper roof below you, yeah?
Yeah, you can see the trees.
Oh, yeah, see, as you lie down, of course, that all disappears. All you see is the trees and a huge area of sky. I think it's delightful.
These bedrooms gulp the northern light of Belfast right into the recesses of the building, so the internal quality here is quite ethereal, transporting you, if not to another country, certainly to another place, more glamorous and indulgent than perhaps Thomas or Dervler had hoped.
Delivered bang on time, and it seems to me you've done it together.
Very much team effort. Anything you see here in terms of material or the labour required for it, Dervler's organised it. I haven't organised any of that.
Then you've done all the details of the architecture and all that sort of stuff, which I wouldn't know anything about.
But you had never done it before.
I know, but I'm good at getting all the orders, and I was good at doing all that sort
Calling in
of
the
stuff.
favours and
Yes,
that kind
doing
of
all
thing.
that sort of stuff.
Do you have a bit that you feel is particularly, good, that's worked particularly well?
Well, I think everything that works around the courtyard garden, that's what we really like about it, which is obviously probably 50% of the ground floor space of the house. It just makes things that bit brighter, that bit nicer. I think we'll find over time, as we live in the house for a longer period of time, it will, I think, change how you actually live. And that will be interesting, an experiment.
What about you, Dervler? I mean, is there any bit you particularly like?
But my main love of it is the kitchen, because I love cooking, so I really like our kitchen design. I just can't wait to start cooking in it.
Do you know how much this has cost?
Well, the job we've actually managed to bring it in under budget.
Under budget, which was £350,000.
Right,
Under that.
Yes.
But presumably that's only because you have project managed it yourselves. You've acted as main contractor as well.
Yeah, that's really the reason.
But it amazes me that you finished this at all without selling the house down below, because 6 weeks ago you said to me, we've got to sell this because at the end of the build, when this place is finished here, that's when all the big bills come in.
Well, at the moment, most of the big bills aren't in, and
We're still waiting for them.
We're still waiting for them, yes. What we're going to do in the next week onwards, we're going to concentrate all our efforts on the front house to get it up and ready and sold on. We still do have to sell it.
And how do you feel now, having done it personally?
It feels good, so it does, I like the fact that because this building's got a lot of different shapes to it, there's bits of it that you keep discovering or seeing from a different angle or a different light. That keeps me entertained,
I can't really believe it, because when I look out onto the courtyard, looking at all those plans way back 10 months ago that has actually come into reality, it has worked exactly the way we want it. We've put a lot of time, a lot of effort into it, and we're very happy with the outcome.
This house is extravagant, indulgent, and environmentally wasteful, but at the same time it is beautiful and elegant and beguiling, and those are qualities which sort of make up for its sins. It has also taken a scrappy bit of hillside and turned it into something magical. It has enhanced its setting, and that is something few buildings can claim. That's the power of great design. That is the power of architecture to redeem itself.